Hello, everyone. I'm Benet Wilson. I am on the board of the Online News Association, and I'm also the chair of ONA's Diversity Committee. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight to talk about the HBCU Digital Fellowship Program. Also joining us tonight are Glynn Hill, who is a past fellow, Jen Misgata, who is coordinating this and doing such a great job working with us. And last but certainly not least, Michael Grant, who is an HBCU graduate himself, and he actually runs the program. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to, Michael, I'll start with you. Can you just give kind of a very brief description of the HBCU Digital Fellowship Program?
Yeah, so the program is in its 4th year now. We convene at the ONA conference each year. It's sponsored by the Knight Foundation. And the program was pretty much built to give HBCU student journalists the opportunity to really immerse themselves in sort of what's happening with the industry right now. And so during that time, they are expected to work with the newsroom at ONA. They run a student news lab there. So they submit a story to that newsroom. They work with me and do a couple workshops one-on-one. I kind of put together a curriculum each year. And, we bring in other speakers from different parts of the journalism industry. They might be parts that they might not be familiar with. So we just like to expose them to pretty much everything that the conference has to offer. So some of it is reporting, some of it is actually participating in some of the sessions and workshops. And some of it is networking, some of it is being coached. So it's all of these things kind of combined into a 3-day period.
Thank you. And I also just want to let everyone know that one of our other fellows, LaCrai Mitchell, is now on the line. So what I'm going to do is have both of you kind of introduce yourselves and just briefly talk about how you found out about the fellowship. And Glynn, we'll start with you.
Can you hear me now? There we go.
Yes, there you go.
Perfect. Hey, so my name is Glynn Hill, and I'm a reporter for about 2 years now. I've been with the Houston Chronicle. I went to Howard University, obviously an HBCU, and I believe I found out about the program through Ingrid Sturgis, who's a professor at Howard, and she does a lot of work with ONA. And I guess what I got most out of the program, I think exposure is probably the one word that I would keep coming back to as far as why this program is important, and what I most got out of that. And that's both being exposed to the types of people that are there, the different skills that are available that you might not even know about, and just a lot of the innovation and the technology that's happening in the industry, being there and being around such smart people and such dynamic people who are really on the forefront of that. So being around that, being exposed to that was the best part of it for me, I'd say.
Thank you. And LaCrai, how about you?
So I for fear of sounding very repetitive, I have to echo a lot of the things that Glynn said. Just being able to be around other aspiring journalists, aspiring digital media connoisseurs who had the same interest in, learning what all the online space had to offer it was an amazing experience that, you can't even really begin to put in words, except that it was just really collaborative. And I think what I got most out of it is that I met friends who I'm still friends with today, and who also, have turned out to be great colleagues within the field. Taylor Harris, who was one of my fellows, is, not just my good friend now, but also she's interning at Reuters. And, another one of our fellows is working for, Phil was at Hampton, and we ended up seeing each other at NABJ together. And so I guess what I'm getting at is all the connections that you make are really nice, because they help you not just when you're like trying to look for jobs, but also once you found a job and you're looking to sort of branch out to a different field or just learn more about what another space is doing. It's really great to have people who you had the chance to meet during ONA who can sort of give you the real scoop on what's going on in their fields as they're working in, you know, different spaces than you are. So the collaboration of it all, I think, was what I got most out of it.
And I have to ask you, because Marlon Walker will kill me if I don't, what school did you attend?
I attended the Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. So I'm a Rattler. Okay. You're right. Marlon would kill you. Didn't ask that.
So next, I'm going to throw some questions out for Michael, because I want Michael to kind of give a little more information on what students who apply for this fellowship can expect. So Michael, you already talked about what the fellowship program is, and you talk about what they do. Let's talk a little bit about how the fellows are selected. You know, people put in their applications. What happens after that?
Yeah, so we have a panel of 6 who are reviewing the applications. It's actually 8, including Benet and I. And some of them are past fellows, some of them are industry folks, some of them are really familiar with the HBCU experience. And so we gather this group to go over the applications. So we start reviewing them. We read each and every one of them. We take a look at your Twitter handle and your website, hopefully if you have one. We want to really get familiar with who you are as a person and as a journalist, and where your interests lie. So your bio can tell us a little bit about that. And then we get into your short essay. And I think that's where students really have the opportunity to kind of connect with us, to let us know about their experience. You know, there might be some things that you're looking for that you haven't found on your career path yet. There might be things that you've been wondering about but don't know how to. There might be things that you've reported on that you're deeply passionate about. There might be something that you did that, you know, got a whole bunch of likes and shares, you know, on social. We want to know about those things, and they're part of your short essay. You know, and we do like autobiographical essays. But I also challenge you to kind of share with us your journalism experience. You know, there might be internships, there might be, you know, conversations that you had at a convention. And lastly, but not least, we definitely take a good look at the skills that you already possess. And the reason why is because some of our fellows do, you know, have really great reporting chops, but they might be missing something else. Or maybe you have, you know, great camera and photo work, or maybe you've been really playing with data, and you've kind of developed yourself in that way. But we also kind of look at those to figure out, well, what don't you have? What could we sort of supplement, you know, in your, you know, journalistic body. So then after we kind of like look at all those things, we sit together and we start to talk about the candidates that are interesting to us and why. We convene a couple times about that. We narrow it down, and then an announcement is sent out.
And I wanted to ask you, Michael, what are some of the red flags or things that people shouldn't put on an application that we're seeing sometimes?
So we've seen very vague applications in the past. We've seen, you know, work samples that you know, maybe we wouldn't consider strong, or maybe you have something that's extremely strong in your portfolio. I wouldn't put something extremely weak in there. I don't think the purpose of this application is to you know, just show everything you have. You really want to weed it down to something that you put some thought into. And I would even challenge you to, you know, make mention of maybe why something wasn't at the level that you wanted it to be, maybe in your short essay. You know, maybe there are some questions that you have about, you know, a particular work sample that didn't, you know, that might have fallen flat. Those kinds of things kind of really help us to understand, you know, where we can help. Another thing are typos. Aunt Benet is a stickler for resumes, so we can talk about that. You know, you really want to put your best foot forward. It's the summer right now. You've got some time. We're still weeks out from, you know, from doing any of the closing of applications. So, so you have time right now to really kind of circulate your resume to, you know, some people who could really, you know, give you a boost. And then your portfolio, just your body of work in general. You just want to be selective about it. You want to be, you know, you want to be the best person that you possibly can be in that application. And so we want to see that. And we've definitely seen applications that, you know, we think are just thrown together. And you can kind of definitely see the difference between applications that have been, you know, sort of rushed through the process as opposed to, you know, well thought and really just kind of on point.
Another thing that I would definitely add is when you're adding your links and it's a Google Doc, make sure that it's open, because nothing is more annoying than clicking on a Google Doc and saying that you don't have access. I won't name the fellow, but there was one fellow who did that. But the application was so strong that I actually hunted him down and told him he had 30 minutes to fix his error. And, you know, it all worked out. But I think you covered all of the points. And now I'm going to put the fellows on the spot, and I'm going to start with LaCrai. LaCrai, I wanted to ask you, do you remember some of the work that you submitted or something about your essay that you did to get into the fellowship program?
I definitely remember some of the work samples that I submitted. I'm trying to think about the essay, but let me start with the work samples and maybe it'll jog my memory. I know for sure that I included a mini documentary that I worked really hard on in school. And that was, like, for me at the time, my best piece of work. So I know I included that link probably at the top. I also included some work samples from my magazine, and I was the editor-in-chief at the time. I'm pretty sure I had done this pretty cool profile that for me was very different than any other body of work, because since I was broadcast, a lot of my work was multimedia in the sense of videos and clips that had to do with our news show. So I know I wanted to show sort of a diversity in what I could do. And I'm pretty sure I included a magazine article, if not a newspaper clip from our paper, just to show that, you know, although video is my thing, because here's this really awesome mini doc, here are some other things that I can do as well. Essay-wise, I don't remember exactly what I put in mine, but I just would, you know, I would just say that I'm sure that, like Michael just mentioned, you know, you want to give the judges, or you want to give Aunt Benet and Michael and everyone who's reviewing the applications a look into who you are. You know, what's something that your work might not say about you that's really interesting. So, you know, in college, senior year at that time, you know, my work might not say that in addition to being the editor-in-chief, I was also, you know, working on an independent film on the side. And I was also dabbling in, you know, the digital space as an online content producer. Those are things that my resume might not necessarily say, because I might not have included it at the time to be more focused, or something that I just want to, like, lift up a little bit. Like, just in case you didn't see that on line 3 of my resume, I'm working on an independent film right now, which is really different and really cool and giving me some skills that I might not get in a news class, you know? So include things that sort of make you stand out and beef up what you might have already told them. Something that, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but student Emmy winner, you know, things that, like, that you don't mind saying twice or 3 times, so that, you know, that you want to sort of accentuate about yourself.
And how about you, Glynn?
I think LaCrai really covered a lot of it. I would say that essay, though, is really an opportunity or a space where you can really shine. Mike talked a lot about some of the things that folks on that selection committee are looking for. And I'd say that I think with my application, probably with LaCrai and some of our other fellows, one of the things that I think that folks will really be impressed by is showing a sense of direction. So even if you don't know exactly what you want to do at 20 or 21 or 25, still having an idea of what it is that you want to do, what it is that you want to get out of the conference. If there's maybe some organizations, some people, some types of projects maybe that you've seen O&A folks do, different types of multimedia projects and things like that. Showing that that's the type of work that you want to do, and you want to be around people who can help teach you that. So I think showing that you put a lot of thought into what it is that you want to do, what it is that you want to get out of the program, where it is that you sort of want to go with yourself, even if that's still something that's a little broad, still something that requires more time or years, still having an idea of it and being able to articulate some of those things that you've got going on in your head about what you want to do and where you want to go with yourself and what role the conference obviously plays in that.
And my next question, again, for the fellows, outside of your fellows and Michael and I, talk about a person or some people that you met as an HBCU fellow at the O&A conference that influenced you or helped you.
Are we throwing this back to me here?
You're talking, so you go ahead.
Man, that's so hard. I don't know if I can narrow it to one person necessarily. I mean, even you take someone like Mike, who I met Mike at the NABJ conference, I guess, the year prior, but we didn't really talk often. So being able to work with him, he was very hands-on, just really a really informative guy to be around. So even being able to develop that relationship with Michael, and now we talk now. We've talked about different projects that we've worked on together. So even just a relationship like that, where it's very casual, but that relationship has turned into something really special to me. Even someone like I did not know who Nicole Hannah-Jones was, embarrassingly enough, prior to 2014, which is when I was a fellow, I believe. So being able to learn a lot about the work that ProPublica was doing and a lot of the work with schools and segregation that she had been doing well before the New York Times, that was something that was very inspiring to me. And it was also a little eye-opening to see the types of projects that were being done by journalists who are a lot better than me.
I met so many people at the conference, and I remember I had my business cards on deck, and I can't even remember how many I passed out and how many I received. But interestingly enough, of a few of the cool people that I've been able to keep in touch with, so there were some like reporters that I met that I'm still following on Twitter, and every now and then it's like a check-in, hey, how are you doing? I know Malika Andrews, she's a new correspondent at New York Times. I met her at O&A when we were both still students at the time. And so it's been really cool to see us sort of graduate, and I ended up at CBS, and now she's at New York Times. So she's in New York, and we met at O&A, but we had coffee back in New York at one point, and now she's there full time. So it's you know, another fellow student who's sort of gone on to do something really cool. I also met, or I was reunited with some people that I already knew from like CNN and Nicole Hannah-Jones as well. You know, just good people that it's one thing to know someone, but to get in an environment like the O&A conference and really be able to like talk with them on a one-on-one level, not over email, but face-to-face, and to possibly go to like a Google reception with them, like I had the chance to do when we were at O&A, just met some people and ended up at this Google reception. That's a totally different experience than reaching out to them via email. And that's great too. But O&A for me was, in addition to meeting some new people, I was able to reunite and sort of get to connect on a more personal level with professionals that I already knew, which was nice.
Okay, Michael, I'm going to jump back to you. because I remember the first year that we did this, we got the money rather quickly. So Irving and I reached out to some of our professor friends and we got the fellows. And, you know, I think they had a good experience. But then Irving had the wise idea to bring somebody on to be a formal coordinator and mentor. And that's when we were so blessed and fortunate to get Michael. And one of the things that Michael does with this fellowship is he actually creates a curriculum. So you're not just thrown out there to do your story. So Michael, I wanted you to talk about the curriculum that you've developed, how it's evolved, and what the fellows who come to Washington, D.C. can expect from you this year.
Sure. So the evolution kind of stems from my experience in working with conference student newsrooms. And so, you know, these environments are, you know, filled with very talented journalists from all over the country. And we do have HBCU representation at, you know, some of them as well. And so I kind of took from, you know, what I saw from some of the most talented students. And I also looked at sort of, you know, what other students have that they're not getting. And so the first year I got a chance to see, you know, my first 4 fellows, you know, be immersed in the ONA student newsroom. And it was great, but I felt like I needed a little bit more to sort of bridge the gap between, you know, what might not be, you know, being taught to them at some of the schools. So I took a step back, and the next year I thought, well, why don't I make it a little bit more about exposure? Why don't I start to bring faces to them that can speak from their area of journalism? Why don't we even try to put code on a page? Now, there's much more efficient ways of teaching journalists how to code, and I certainly hadn't learned those at the time. So I think that assignment fell flat, but it was still a good introduction, and I still think I was able to, you know, give the fellows who came that year a little something more to begin to grapple on. And you know, and it's the perfect environment to then take some of those conversations and learnings and start to have bigger conversations about your own direction. And so kind of going off of that, I kind of rethought the curriculum a little bit further. And so last year what I had where lots of people come and speak. And I made sure that the assignments that we did had some sort of digital component to them, not just posting words online, but like, are we using a tool? You know, are you creating, you know, visual assets for this particular piece? You know, there might be a particular thing that you're covering that's, you know, particularly like cutting edge. So I really wanted to get into the minds of the fellows and get them to start to use the tools and techniques. And this year coming up, what I really want to do is get really practical. So I kind of have you know, some code waiting for them to touch, and it'll be about sort of building your own portfolio. Now, some people might already have websites and portfolios online, but you know, maybe they just need the starting point and a little bit more. VR going on this year at ONA, and so there are some opportunities to get the fellows involved with that. You know, for those who have interest in actually shooting 360 video, that might be a thing. For those who want to sort of understand how to tell that story in that format, there's an opportunity. So we're looking at other sort of developments in the industry and really bringing the students closer, you know, and just allowing them to get enough of a taste of it to get them excited and to, you know, sort of get them going on their way while they're at the conference. And the last part of my curriculum, I'll be quick about this, but it's a very special part about it. It is that we curate the conference experience for you. So that was one thing that was missing from my first and second year. And I thought the third year really benefited from that. It was us sitting together and figuring out what is your direction? What is it that you're interested in? Now that I know your application and now that I've come to know you as a person before you come to the conference, how can I push you into the right direction. And so we look at the conference schedule and we allow the fellows to go to a lot of the sessions. Now, why do I do that? You know, I don't want to get my fellows stuck in the rut of just reporting. I think it's really important to have the exposure. And that is the one time during the year that not only fellows and student journalists there can get the exposure, but industry people, cutting edge, leading industry people are in the house doing presentations or feeding off of their colleagues. And so I want my fellows to get that kind of inspiration, that kind of motivation from the conference experience. So we choose, you know, which sessions that they like to go to while still submitting a story and getting coached. And I think the collection of those things will continue to make this a very mature program for development.
And that is the perfect segue to my next question for the fellows. And LaCrai, I'll start with you this time. What was the story that you did for the student newsroom, and talk a little bit about how you developed it?
Right. So I knew I brought my camera to the conference, and so I knew I wanted to do whatever story I decided to tell. I knew I wanted there to be a video element, and I kind of was on my kick of long form storytelling. So I wanted it to be sort of featurey, a long form feature piece that covered something interesting about the conference. And my year, the conference's, you know, sort of sub theme was all about diversity and all of the many faces of the ONA conference. So I decided to do a spinoff of the Humans of New York and did sort of like the Humans of ONA in a video piece. So I tried to find as many conference participants from as many different countries and places that I could find. And I sort of put together a compilation of, you know, what diversity meant for them, not just for the conference, but also in their specific fields, and why was it so important? And did they feel like they were a part of the story of the diversity of ONA that particular year? So that was pretty cool. Like I said, I compiled all of these, you know, different interviews that I shot and then edited together for my piece.
And Glynn, what did you do?
Wow, that feels so long ago. I recall trying to do something related to the, I guess, social justice, but then also tangentially related to the conference. And I ended up doing a story on expungement. So again, like doing something, being able to pursue a story about something that I know very little about, but also having people at the conference who either knew themselves or also knew the people to be able to make that a really strong story. And then prior to the conference, I had, you know, I called football games at Howard. I was the editor-in-chief at one point. I did a lot of different things, but data visualization and just working with big data in general wasn't something I had a lot of experience with. So that was something I was sort of going into the conference looking to improve on and looking to learn more about. I mean, that's something that I did with that story in terms of actually writing a decent story for print online, I guess. But then also being able to add to that story different elements of data visualization and like maps and charts that were a little more interactive than I was able to make on my own or before the conference. And that's a piece that I've actually even been able to use when I go to interviews and when I'm talking to recruiters and things like that, being able to show a piece like that, which I mean, I did, but also I had a lot of really smart people around me to help me put something like that together.
And Michael, talking about smart people, can you talk about some of the people that you bring in to talk to the fellows during the conference?
Oh, wow. So yeah, I've had some very exciting people. Some of them are past MJ Bear fellows who themselves are already impressive by design. I've had everyone from people who work in product at Vox. I've had someone from ProPublica. I've had someone from McClatchy who works in in data and development. At the corporate level, I've had, folks from AJ Plus talk about, social video. Let's see, I have Julia Chan was a great one. She was at CIR. She was talking to us about investigative reporting and podcasting. And so, that just kind of scratches the surface, but we got demos of what that looks like to, go behind the scenes and start to produce a podcast based on investigative work and what a social strategy for investigation looks like in illustrated form on an Instagram. I mean, it just gets really awesome. And, I'm sitting back like, wow, I can't believe you guys just, went about this investigative story that way. And, apparently it rocked. It really resonated with their audiences. And, my fellows kind of had a lot of questions to ask. And that was like 30 minutes of one-on-one time, to get critique, to, just ask questions that they've been dying to, to understand, like figuring out how to do it on the cheap. So all of that was like very beneficial for them.
And Michael, I should have asked you this at the beginning, but if you could please tell people where you went to school and what you're doing now, really quickly.
Sure. So I majored mass communication at Grambling State University in Louisiana. So I'm a Tiger. I currently work for the San Francisco Business Times. I am the creative director here. And I recently was accepted for the JSK Fellowship at Stanford. So I'll be headed to Stanford in September for 10 months for a very special project.
Okay. I just noticed that my dear friend Ingrid Sturgis just came on, and I'm going to have her take herself off mute because she's going to become part of this conversation. Ingrid, first, can you just introduce yourself, let everybody know who you are?
Hold on. Mute. Hang on.
You're on. I can hear you. Oh, you're on mute again.
I see one of my former students there. And I've done the student projects for a few years. I'm not doing it this year, but I did it for about 5 years, which is a wonderful experience. And we worked with Michael with the HBCU students when I did the student projects at ONA. So I'm kind of like the digital person at Howard University. And I'm really glad I just stumbled upon this. I just happened to be fooling around and I stumbled on this and I was hoping to kind of like lurk, but I'm happy to be here and I was going to send some emails to see if I can get some more students to come on.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you about, Ingrid. As a professor, I mean, you've been in the forefront at ONA for years, and you're also active in NABJ, and everyone knows you as the digital guru at Howard University. So I wanted to ask you, how do you get the word out about the HBCU fellows, not only to Howard students, but just the HBCU community in general? I mean, what do you tell the students why they need to do this?
Well, I try to talk to them when I see them at all the conventions and all the workshops that are around. And when I talk to them, I tell them to take advantage of this because this is one of the best opportunities that students can get to get one-on-one, get really great experiences, and to get at least an introduction to all the digital things that are going on at the various newspapers and news organizations and news media. I mean, there's so much that's going on. So I just try to corral them one-on-one. I share it on my Facebook. I share it on my Twitter. I send it out to my students via email and their Howard accounts, and also share it with other people at other schools who are trying to get their students to get more involved too. So I just try to make sure that everyone I know who's a journalism student has access to the information.
Okay. So then, Michael, I'm going to come back to you. Looking at this year, you kind of talked about adding the 360 journalism as part of your curriculum. What are some of the other things that this year's fellows can look forward to?
So I was really inspired by a session that I got at Poynter by Al Tompkins. I mean, he did this amazing, roundup of tools that we could be using. Now, Michelle Johnson, who runs the ONA Student Newsroom, already has like a really impressive list that she shares with me every year that I make sure that my fellows get their hands on. But I think Al showed me the importance of what it is to deliver those tools in a presentation in about 30 minutes, where you just get a sweep of everything that that he has to offer. So I'm going to try my hand at this year and actually demonstrate some of the really cool tools that we can get our hands on now. Some of them might be applications on your desktop. Some of them might be mobile applications. Some of them might be a quick demo of a certain technology at work. And so, probably in about an hour, in just an hour's time, we're going to go through about 20 different things, maybe 30. We'll see how I do. But it's really fun to actually demonstrate those things. And then the next thing that they would do after that is to actually introduce one of those things into their story. So which one of these pieces of technology do you really want to do some reporting with while you're here? Well, let's get you to do that. And then they'll do it.
Okay, I'm going to jump back to the fellows again. And LaCrai, I'm going to start with you because Glynn was there before you. I want to give him time to think about it because it's been a while for him, I know. But LaCrai, I wanted to ask you, I remember just seeing you all over the place. And I want to say it was Los Angeles. Is anti-senile or was it Los Angeles?
It was in Los Angeles.
Oh,
yep.
Good. I wanted to ask you, of the workshops that you went to, what was one that really stood out for you?
There were two. I went to a podcasting one that was really, really cool. It was moderated by a reporter from BuzzFeed and her colleague. And I think it was so cool to me because at the time I just didn't know much about it. Like I knew that, I think that was around the time that Serial had, sort of blown up. And I just didn't know much about it. And the workshop was very, sort of podcasting for dummies type of setup in the sense of you didn't need to come in with a whole lot of knowledge, and they really broke it down, this is what this is, and this is how you can podcast or you can start your own podcast. So I really liked that one because it was so interactive, and I think it was 2 parts, so it was pretty long, but it was interesting enough where you wanted to sign up for the next session. And then the second one was actually, I felt like it was designed more so for sort of top level people within the newsroom, like senior producers and people who have the power to hire. But I remember it because I remember learning so much about how there were producers across, our sort of digital landscape who were really trying hard how to figure out how to diversify their newsrooms. And I remember not realizing it was such a problem, I guess, because my local station here at home didn't necessarily have that problem. And I had interned at CBS, so I was used to seeing a newsroom with a bunch of different faces and a bunch of different skill sets. And I didn't realize how across our landscape, there were producers who were really they had serious questions about, how do I do this? What does this look like? And so that workshop, even though it wasn't, I don't think, designed for like entry-level folks like me, I ended up getting something out of it just because I learned a lot. And to sort of get a inside look at the hiring, the brains of the people who are hiring and how they hire and what they're looking for and how they wanted to sort of switch up their strategy to be a little more inclusive of, a wider net of people was, I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool to take a front seat on how that all worked. So those two.
Glynn, how about you?
That's pretty hard to remember that far back. What I will say though is that more so than any particular session that I remember, going back to this idea of using the conference as a vehicle to sort of break down walls that you've been peering over but might not have been able to do it on your own. Mike talked about that a coding session that I guess has developed over the years, but he actually held a sort of mini coding session for us my year when I was there back in 2014. And I thought, going back to the data, learning data visualization, I thought that just being exposed to that, I was actually, I think, making my new website at the time too. So being able to get in there and see beyond HTML, I think that was something that was really valuable for me.
And Ingrid, I'm going to ask you, because you've been in the ONA student newsroom, you've attended the conference for quite a while. What would you say to students, to HBCU fellows applying for this, some of the workshops in the past that you think would be relevant for them?
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of geeky like that, but
I know. That's why I'm asking.
I just love everything about it. I go to all the workshops. I went to when there was a year when they had workshops on just plain coding for people who hadn't done it before. And that was really a great experience because I believe it was an all-day workshop. You stay there stay all day long and learn all these things that you wouldn't have an opportunity to learn or that you would have had to pay for. In addition, some of the workshops on 360 video, which is something that we're trying to do on campus now, and also the workshops on investigative reporting. And a lot of the data journalism stuff, I think those are the things that are top of mind for students to get their hands on today. And I know that Michael does a good job of getting one-on-one time with some of the really great journalists and trainers at ONA, and I think just talking to people is really a good way to get entree into what jobs are available and who's hiring who and what company is really doing some innovative things. I know that when Glynn was a student, I pushed him to go to ONA, and I think it was a good. I think he got the best out of it actually, but. Anyway, yeah, so just about all the sessions are good. Some of the larger sessions are good because you get a panel of people talking about some of the topics and issues of concern in the journalism field and in diversity. So I think there's a whole lot of ways for students to go. I think just attending alone is really something good for students to do. And volunteering too.
I was going to say, that reminded me, I do think that there was a workshop, any workshop that they offer about apps, I'm always really interested in, because a lot of times they're introducing apps that I haven't used before or that I've never even heard of. So I'm pretty sure it was at ONA where I attended this workshop about apps that included like Bubbly and things that you might not even use on a regular basis, but it's just really cool to know that they exist, because if you do ever find a reason to need to create a bubble of pictures, like a sort of 360 bubble, there's an app for that called Bubbly. And, you know, going to workshops about different apps can show you or introduce you to applications for everyday uses that are different than the ones that you may use on a regular basis, and that are sometimes free and cheaper than the ones that, you know, you've been introduced to in the past.
Back to the fellows again, I wanted to ask you both, since going to the ONA as the HBCU fellows, how do you think that participating in that program has helped you in your career?
Wow, that's another hard question. I think that I want to go back to this word again, exposure, both in teaching me about what I did not know, if that makes sense, and almost taking that idea and recycling it in everything that I do every year, looking out for opportunities, and using technology to try to reach people and learn things that that I don't know, and also seeing what's out there that I might not know of.
For me, it's been the connections that I made and how they, like, the love doesn't stop from those connections, or has not stopped since I've entered the field. You know, whether it's, you know, you find yourself applying for a fellowship and the person sees that you did O&A and they know Aunt Benet is over O&A, and then they're like, you know Aunt Benet, and yeah, I know Aunt Benet, and you know Michael, yeah. And so for me, it was purely the people, you know, not purely the people, but a big chunk of it that I've been able to use in my career is just the importance of making those connections, because I feel like our industry is so interconnected in that way. You know, someone knows someone who knows someone. And so you meet these great people at O&A, you put yourself out there and you show them that you work hard and that you love storytelling and you love this craft. And then those same people you see at different conferences, and, you know, you find yourself sort of as you continue on your journey. And for me, it's been really cool to be able to use those connections from O&A and to be able to see how they've grown in other aspects throughout my career. So just sort of the importance of networking, and how now at the office, I know, you know, it was sort of reaffirmed for me how important networking and how important sort of maintaining and nurturing those connections, how important that is.
One of the things that I really love about O&A is something that Jen does very well. When we do these programs, Jen has been vital in, once, even after the fellowships or all of our programs are over, keeping people connected. And I wanted to ask you, Michael, can you talk about what happens after the fellowship is over? How are we all still connected? How do we still stay in touch? What do we do?
Absolutely. So I believe this little family is up to 15, and we are all a part of this little GroupMe app or conversation that's now long-standing. And so what's really awesome about it is that all of the fellows from every year in all these different colleges and schools kind of, you know, get together and talk about all kinds of stuff that are happening in their careers. You know, they kind of share, you know, when they've done something awesome, they'll ask for a boost and get one. You know, it's a supportive group. It's a think tank. You know, if you need advice, we're here for each other. And so it's really, you know, sort of developed into this a really tight circle, you know, and they share each other's experiences. I think there's just like a new sense of, like a renewed sense of joy with each class that comes through there, just to see the new faces who've been a part of a similar experience. I think that a lot of the old fellows kind of look over and see like how those fellows are doing. So it's awesome. It's just a really great community. And, you know, sometimes I have to minimize my little chat thing at work so that I don't talk to them too much, but it's really good. It's thriving, and I just want to see it grow.
Okay. Before I get to the last question, Jen, I wanted to bring you on to just talk a little about the conference in general and talk about the application process, the deadlines, and that sort of thing for the HBCU Fellowship.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So the application deadline is July 20th. And as far as the conference itself goes, so we'll be in Washington, D.C. October 5th through 7th. The HBCU Fellowship is one of the fellowships that we offer. We also offer an MJ Baer Fellowship. So if you tuned into this and you're a digital journalist under 30 but not an HBCU fellow, there might be another opportunity to get you there through that other fellowship. But yeah, I think, we basically focus on bringing kind of a wide group of people who represent the best in digital journalism to the conference. So you'll have speakers who talk on all of the most important industry trends. You'll have workshops there that you can participate in. And then there's a number of networking opportunities as well. So I think the most important thing for people who are interested in the HBCU Fellowship is to get the application in by July 20th, to take the personal essay seriously, and to think about, how the conference itself can fit into their career goals. And so we already have the full schedule for the conference, minus just a few sessions up online, and all the speakers are also on our website. So when you're pulling together your application, you can use the website and the speaker list to kind of inform what you're doing and help you think about like what you're looking for in your career and how the conference can fit in.
And the website is ona17.journalist.org. It's on speed dial in my head. So I'm going to ask my last question, and this is going to be to all of you. And I'm actually going to switch it up and start with Ingrid first.
Oh, okay.
Ingrid, when somebody comes to you and says, why should I apply for this fellowship? What do you tell them as a professor?
Well, I tell them, especially if they don't have a lot of digital experience, I tell them that this can give them a leg up on opportunities for their career and for their jobs, because they'll meet people who are at the forefront of the changes in journalism, the digital and the innovative changes in journalism. And you can't go to a better conference, basically, I think. Aside from NABJ, I got my NABJ Alliance, but you really can't go to a better conference for learning what's coming down the pike in journalism, in your field, in your chosen career.
Okay, Glynn, I'm going to ask you next. Same question. What would you say to students who come to you and ask you why they should apply?
I think Professor Sturgis sort of hit on a great point that if you don't have that digital experience on your resume, if you haven't gotten that experience, I think it's a huge opportunity in terms of being around those different people and being around all these different amazing creative ideas. And then going back to that idea of, I guess it's the same thing, but it's exposure. I guess I can't say it enough. And I think that ONA is really an excellent opportunity for people to be around people and things and ideas that they might not be at their college or home or wherever they are.
Okay. LaCrai?
I tell people that if you think you know about digital journalism, you have no idea until you attend ONA. And it's because that landscape is perpetually changing. It's evolving. And so ONA is the one place where you can bet your bottom dollar that if it's something new in that space, there's someone there who knows about it, and they've already, have been taking a whack at it, and they can teach you something about it. And so I think that it's an amazing place to just go and be at the top of your game about what's going on in the digital space. I tell them that it's an amazing network opportunity, which I feel like becomes cliche, but I mean, honestly, that's exactly what ONA is. It's, a place where you can go and pass out your business cards. And then I tell them, if you're looking for a job, it's a place to get one. I mean, I literally remember meeting an editor from a paper in Denver, and she was like, "You're a senior?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I'm going to keep your card and I'm going to email you." And she did. And so, I didn't take that opportunity, but it's just the idea that there are people that are at that conference looking to hire students right out of college. And when you're able to say, I'm an HBCU Digital Fellow, it makes their ears ring a bit, and they take your card, and you never know what possibilities can come from that. So those are my pitches when I'm talking about the HBCU Digital Fellowship.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Michael Grant.
I kind of want to go with the answer the question with the question. Don't you want to be competitive? And so I think the knowledge that is in the room at ONA is just tremendous. And just to be able to take some of that knowledge and roll it into what you have to offer is an amazing opportunity. And you can do that as an HBCU Digital Media Fellow.
All right, I think that's about it. I want to thank you all so much for doing this. This is a program, I'm speaking for Michael too, that is near and dear to our hearts. So we've really enjoyed watching it flourish and grow, and we want to give people this wonderful opportunity. So as Jen said, the deadline to apply is July 20th. You can go to the website, which is journalists.org, and we hope that you apply, and don't wait till the last minute, please.
Please.
Thank you guys very much. Have a great evening.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.